When should you call a realtor? Guys, today we're going to get into it. Let's go.
You better get fired up.
All right, we got a Friday, man. I love Friday. You love Friday. I love Friday. Everybody loves Friday. So happy Friday, man. That's pretty. Oh, bump the old. Let's try this. Yeah. Does that do anything? This microphone is awesome, man. I got this microphone. It folds all. I'll show you here. You can do all kinds of things with it, man. It's awesome. But anyway, when should you use a realtor? Here's the traditional thought, man. Here's why we did this video. A lot of people look at a realtor, and I do with any other type of salesman. You think, ugh, I don't want to call them until I'm absolutely ready because I don't want to be called a million times, texted, emailed, knocks on my door. I just don't want to deal with it, right? And that makes sense. I get it. I completely get it. So the thought is, for me, let's look at what you would gain in value. And we're going to look at it both as a buyer and as a seller. What would you gain in value by calling a realtor a little bit earlier than maybe you would want to? And then you've got to weigh that against, are they going to bug the crap out of me, right? Caveat, find yourself a realtor who won't bug the crap out of you, man. Find someone you get a good relationship, who you trust, who has a great reputation. If you don't know anybody, man, go out and ask on Facebook for some referrals. And those posts always get 200-300 comments on them. You'll get a list of great people. My gosh, if you're on the Treasure Coast, call me. I'm not going to bug the crap out of you, right? And most good agents aren't. They want to help people who want to be helped. And if you don't want to be bugged, they're not going to bug you. But some people will. So I understand the hesitation. So let's look at buyers first, right? Marisol, hello, how are you? Guys, if you are as amazing as Marisol and you are watching on Facebook or YouTube and you want to reach out, say hello, ask a question, give a comment, whatever it is, feel free to, and I'd love to respond to you. So as a buyer, most buyers call me when they're ready to see a house. And a lot of them are ready to put in an offer right now, right? And some of the challenges that I see with that are, first of all, if you haven't gone through and talked to a lender and not just gotten pre-approved, because that's kind of the magic hype word, right? But actually looked at, what are my best options? Should I be using a VA loan? Should I be using a conventional loan? Should I be using an FHA loan? What are the pros and cons of all of them? Because you might want to use one for one reason, one for another reason. And there might be a discussion that you want to have in there with your accountant, with your financial advisor, with your whoever, spouse, right? If you're sitting on the house that you want to purchase right now and you call me, it gives you less opportunity and less time to have those conversations. So really reaching out early and talking not only with the realtor, but with the lender to see what the best strategy is before you go out. You want your financing set up before you go out. And it's not just because, oh my gosh, what if I don't get approved? It's because they might need more paperwork, right? I can't tell you how many people will say, Joe, I got to put an offer in today. I just had this yesterday. I had a gal call me and she said, Joe, I want to put an offer. And this gal's cash. She's got to sell some stocks, but she's cash. And she said, Joe, I want to put an offer in on this property right now. I said, okay, great. She said, I do not want to lose it. Let's go. I said, okay, not a problem. I started going through the purchase agreement and I said, okay, what closing date do you want? And she's like, well, if we need to move it, can we move it? And I said, in Florida, you can request to move it. And if the seller says yes, you can. But if they say no, you are contractually bound to that date. That's how it works, right? Well, I don't know how long it's going to take me to sell those stocks. And I said, well, I'll tell you, I've sold a lot of homes, and traditionally it takes days, maybe a week or two at most. Shouldn't take that long. Oh, no, Joe, not this company. This company's going to take at least a month and a half, 2 months. I said, well, I hope I'm right, but I don't know I'm right. So I recommend reaching out to that company and asking them how that process works. And she said, oh my gosh, I don't want to miss out on this house. I want to put this offer in. And I said, I fully understand. And there's some things we can do, and we're doing them. But you've got to protect yourself too, right? Had she reached out to me literally a week prior, I could have said, hey, you're going to find a house you like. How are you going to fund it? Well, I'm going to sell my stocks. Okay, how long is that going to take? I don't know. Great, call the company and find out. And now she would know what kind of timeline we need, and she could have had that offer in yesterday, right? So a lot of those little things will slow you down. And now you potentially risk losing the house. Here's another one, especially if you're not a traditionally like W-2 employee. If you are 1099, you own your own business, maybe your finances are really complex. A lot of those folks will send in the application and the paperwork, and then they'll hear back from the lender once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, asking for additional paperwork because it's so complex. And they didn't know they needed to ask question 2 until you answered question 1, right? And then they didn't know they needed to ask question 3 until you answered question 2. So a lot of times, if you have more complex finances yourself, self-employed, you're going to want to meet specifically with that lender early so that they can look into those things and get those questions all hashed out. You want to deal with those problems when you're not waiting on a house, right? Here's a big question I got. I got this morning. Joe, if I get approved, how long is my pre-approval good for? It depends on the lender, but it's usually 60 to 90 days. And it's not a big deal if it expires. I get a lot of people who will get pre-approved because they want to see what kind of financing am I going to use? How is it all going to work? What do the numbers look like? But then by the time they get down here and we start searching, it's been 3-4 months, right? Not a big deal. All you got to do is go back to that lender and say, hey, found the house I want. Can I get pre-approved again? They've already got 90% of what they need. They're probably just going to run a few reports in the back. And within maybe an hour, 2 hours, they're going to get back and say, yes, right, you're good to go. Or they'll say, no, we need another piece of paperwork, whatever it is. But at that point, most people have gotten everything that they need to get into that lender. So on the buy side, here's another thing from a realtor standpoint. I can't tell you how many people will go out and look for homes. And we're looking at all the homes. Let's say they know, hey, I know I'm going to get approved for 400 grand. I'll probably get approved for 5 or 6. Let's go look at homes up to 4. And we find a house and they love it. We look at it and they're like, I'm going to put in an offer. And then they call the lender and the lender says, cool, you're approved for FHA financing. And they're like, okay, let's do it. And I say, well, that seller is not accepting FHA financing, and it's because they've got this issue, this issue, this issue. Those issues aren't a big deal to you. Maybe you're purchasing it for those issues. You know you're going to get a good deal, but you're going to put some sweat equity in to fix some of these issues. That's phenomenal. But FHA is going to have a problem with it, right? So we really should be looking at homes that accept conventional financing. That's something that if you had come maybe a week or 2 prior, we could have had that all set up, that discussion. We could have scheduled it with the lender and we could have figured that out beforehand. And now we're only looking at homes that accept conventional financing that you know you can purchase, right? So it doesn't waste your time and it puts in front of you homes that you can actually purchase. It just makes it a more efficient process. So those are some examples on the buy side of things that can really help you out. If you're new to the area, I would absolutely reach out to a realtor as soon as possible. And their job isn't to sell you a house. Their job is to really inform you and educate you on the different neighborhoods, the different price points. Maybe you've got kids and you're looking at the different school districts, whatever it is. Their job at that point is to educate you. Tell me, where should I be living? Why would I live over here? Why would I live over here? Why would I live over here? What are the cons to each of these places? Tell me about the different price point expectations. Is this one heavy HOAs over here? And over here, there's not a lot of HOAs because maybe I've got an RV or a big boat or whatever it is. That discussion, in my opinion, should be had about a month out, because if you can have that conversation and you're looking at 10 different areas, whether it's cities, communities, whatever it is, and I, as the realtor, say, well, based on what you're telling me, you're probably, I just had this conversation today, and I said, you're probably going to be interested in East Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie, or Jupiter. That's my best guess. So that person said, great, that's where I'm going to invest all my time researching. And so now they're looking at those 3 different areas and comparing them to each other instead of wasting all that time on areas that they probably will not buy in based on the criteria they shared with me. So if you're looking in a new area, I would absolutely reach out to that realtor at least a month ahead of time, maybe 2 months, just to give you time to do your research. So when you get there, you're not starting from scratch, right? You actually have a feel for what this community feels like. You understand the expectations of this community. You've got it. You've kind of got a feel for it. So when you show up, you've got that confidence and you're a little bit more educated. So that's on the buy side, right? Let's talk about the sell side. If you're a seller, Again, I get a lot of people who say, hey, we're interviewing 2 or 3 realtors this weekend and we're going to list our home on Monday. Can you come over? And I will get there. And if they don't hear the price they like, they might not be financially willing or able or prepared or excited about selling. And in that situation, maybe in their best interests, they shouldn't be selling, right? That would have been a great discussion to have before they started making commitments maybe to the next place, or they started moving things, or they started accepting job offers. So guys, I can tell you every realtor will give you what's called a free market analysis. It's just a valuation of your property. Joe, I can look at Zillow. Yeah, you can look at Zillow, but what Zillow does is it takes an algorithm that takes an average of surrounding comps. It's not looking at whether or not you've got crown molding. It's not looking at whether or not you've got smudges in your paint from the dogs or the kids, or it's got a smoke smell, or maybe you've got gas instead of electric, or maybe you've got matching stainless steel appliances instead of a mismatch of older appliances. It's not looking at all those things, right? So it might be on, it could be 20, 30, 40, $50,000 off. And that difference, not only is it going to set incorrect expectations, and it's really challenging when the Zestimate is higher, right? When it's lower, I'm bringing good news. Everybody loves that. But when it's higher, it ends up being bad news because you've set the expectations of a higher number that's just not, likely in this market. And a lot of times it's when homes are a little bit more beat up, or maybe they're not as updated, and that algorithm doesn't take that into consideration. If we'd talked a month prior and I'd given them that number and explained the why, they could either say, hey, let's not accept that job, let's not start looking at other places, and let's not commit to moving costs until we've got all this kind of figured out. Or they could have said, okay, now my expectations are set, I've got a little bit more time to research this and decide if the numbers are going to work out. Or they might say, hey, that works, let's move forward, whatever. But really what it does is it gives them more time to have that conversation with themselves and just kind of discuss whether or not this is the best move for them and how they're going to do it, if they're going to do it, right? Here's another thing. I get a lot of people will come in there and they're going to list it in 3-4 days. And I'm looking at the house and I'm saying, guys, you want top dollar, right? Most people do. Not everybody, but most people. And when I say not everybody, it's not that they don't want money. It's that they don't want to put in the effort to get the top dollar. But some people do. And I'll say, okay, to get top dollar, you're going to need to do these 7 things on this list. Well, these 7 things might take you 2, 3, 4 weekends at Home Depot. You might have to hire somebody, maybe some of the stuff you can do yourself, but it's going to take time. So right now you're telling me you want to list your home in 3-4 days. If we do that, I'm not going to get you top dollar because your home is not prepared to attract top dollar. And a lot of times people will be disappointed and they're like, I didn't think about this. God, George, I wish we'd called him earlier. So a lot of times if you can get someone in there early to tell you what you recommend they do and how it's going to impact them on a final sales price, man, is that helpful. And man, is it a lot less stressful having a month or two to work through a lot of those, updates, repairs, paint blemishes, whatever it is, then, oh my gosh, we wanted to, get this on in 3 days. Let's see if we can get it on in 5 days. But George, we got to get all this done now, right? And then you've got all that added stress and just challenging expectations. So really getting all that figured out early, in my opinion, is incredibly helpful, right? Incredibly helpful. Those are the biggest points. Guys, I could get into more details, but really it comes down to, as a seller, you want to know your price and you want to know what that realtor is going to suggest you do to get top dollar. And on the buy side, it's really mostly getting your finances straightened away so that you know what type of financing you're going to use, what price point should you be looking at. Do I even understand what the monthly payment on a price point is? I'll tell you, the majority of people, they don't care if they're buying a $300,000 home or a $900,000 home. They are not buying a price point. They are buying a mortgage payment. They know I can afford whatever, $3,200 a month. I have no idea. Is that 300 grand? Is that 900 grand? They don't know and they don't care. They want to know that they're able to pay 3,200 a month or less because that's their comfort range, right? So getting that from that lender is super helpful. But those are the biggest points, guys. If you have any more questions, always feel free to reach out. And every Friday I do, you've got questions, I've got answers. So if you've got a specific question that you would like us to address, feel free to put it in the comments. You can DM me personally, and I'd be more than happy to get that up in a future topic. Guys, have an amazing Friday and an even better weekend.